Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. We're going to be taking the Empire against the High Elves today, hence Karl Franz here. We've also got a steam tank. Yes, indeed, I like these quite a bit against the High Elves. Front line of mixed state troops with 4 Empire Knights and 2 Pistoliers for my High Elf opponent. He does have a unit of Reaver Archers. We've got some Spearmen, some White Lions, a Noble on a Chariot, a couple Archers here, 3 Bolt Throwers, and a Prince up on a Star Dragon, all kitted out. I will say this build does lack healing, and I was hesitant to lack any sort of caster for that matter, and I was hesitant to show it because of that, but I still wanted to show, I mean, it's a steam tank game for one, and Karl Franz and all that jazz, plus it has some pretty good points for discussion, the tank being an actual and figurative tank here, both in a gameplay sense and a literal sense. Tanking some of the fire from those bolt throwers, it is taking quite a bit of damage, but obviously these White Lions don't have charge defense in the front line, so we're just going to collapse with Empire Knights here, start to disrupt my opponent's line a little bit here. This is going to pull the Star Dragon down, and we're going to be moving in with supporting infantry as we pull the Empire Knights back. The idea here was just try and do a bit of shock damage and maybe like bring this Star Dragon in, maybe bring the Noble in. You can see the Noble's already taking quite a few shots from the steam tank. I did have to burn a regrowth on the steam tank because it was taking so much damage from those bolt throwers, but at this point I managed to get my Pistoliers back up and around because of this disruption. They're going to shut down these bolt throwers momentarily, and then here comes Karl. Because the Star Dragon, we managed to pull him away from the spear support a little bit. We're going to use the state troops to make sure they don't get involved here, and then come in with Karl, supporting also with the steam tank, of course, shooting in here. And you can see Karl, with all of his buffs, is just going to go ham on the Prince, while the Prince doesn't have his buffs active. And, the Prince and the Noble both just getting absolutely canned. Meanwhile, the Empire Knights are starting to run roughshod a little bit here. The Pistoliers were fended off by Spearmen in the back line, and some of those Bolt Thrower crews are going to be getting back on station, but there's plenty more state troops moving in up on the flank. Still plenty of healthy Empire Knights as well, and now this is a little bit risky, and it's also kind of one of the things I wanted to showcase. So for those of you who haven't seen my How to Read Stats video, basically the way melee attack and defense works is it's a dice roll. Every time an attack animation plays out, it's the attacker's melee attack versus the defender's melee defense. The base chance to hit is 35%, and then each point of melee attack above melee defense, it goes, above that by a percentage point. Every point below it goes down, and so on, up to a maximum of 90% chance to hit, and the minimum, I believe, is 8% chance to hit. Now, those numbers are different from Total War Warhammer 1, so one of the reasons why melee defense and melee attack matter a lot more in Total War Warhammer 2. But you can see here, I managed to get mostly favorable dice rolls, but once the dice rolls started to turn against me, I went ahead and decided to pull away there and try and use the steam tank to finish the Prince off. It is pretty risky here, and Karl, with a few wrong dice rolls, I mean, only 43 melee attack for him, 64 melee attack for the Prince, so he does have a pretty solid chance to hit there, and it's mostly more or less a coin flip. You can see the dragon. I'm trying to kind of bait him around and keep him from using his breath attacks too much. Meanwhile, in the back line, I haven't really been highlighting them too much, but the Empire Knights have just been charging around, ping-ponging between different targets here, hitting Spearmen and then hitting Archers and then hitting White Lions, and just kind of going back and forth between all those targets. At this point, same thing. Dice rolls here. Karl is going to come in. Unfortunately, the dice rolls go against me because the Prince has his buffs popped and is up to 90 melee attack with 780 total weapon strength. Easily enough to finish off Franz, but a couple key hits from the steam tank also finish off the Prince's leadership. So obviously my opponent's build did suffer pretty badly from not having healing. Even if he had just had a life mage with, simple Earthblood and Regrowth, that would have given him a lot of extra value on that Prince and the Noble both. Would have made this build quite a bit stronger, but I figured you guys would like seeing the steam tank in action, and it is still alive here despite having tanked a considerable amount of damage. Only has 4 kills, but most of that is because it's been shooting at the Prince and the Noble, and has dealt with both very effectively. I'm not sure where exactly the Noble got off to, if he got routed or if his chariot got blown up somewhere, but regardless, has been a good victory for the Empire. You can see the Empire Knights just kind of cleaning things up in the back line here, going after these Archers and Bolt Thrower crews and so on. Pistoliers cleaning up routing units, and the Reavers Valyrian Reavers, who had been just kind of harassing over on the side. Going to go after the steam tank, but yep, point blank shot, and that's game. So, well played to my opponent. Obviously, as I said, he definitely should have brought some healing. Even just cutting like one of these bolt throwers and bringing, that would probably give you enough to bring at least a basic, you know, kitted down healer at the very least. You want something, certainly. And in my opinion, you could also spread out a little bit more. Typically when you guys see me play a more defensive style like that, I will be pretty spread out, including spreading my artillery pieces out, because like in that situation when they're all three right next to each other, one unit of cav, 1 or 2 units of cav can get in and shut down all three at the same time, like I was able to with those pistoliers. You know, even if it was only momentarily, probably was enough to save the steam tank from getting blown up. You can see it just barely survived there at the end. But, you know, interrupting those bolt throwers was pretty key for that. And, you know, having them all stacked on top of each other like that, it does make them easier to compromise. Obviously, spreading them out does require a little bit more micro to protect, but I definitely would recommend doing so. We're going to go ahead and jump into another one here. Same matchup, also in the desert. This time my opponent has brought a healer. Brought a little bit of an interesting build, though. A lot of Lothern Seaguard with shields. We've got some cavalry, Tyrion, and a healer. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. My build is exactly the same as before. So, no need to really go into that too much. But, yeah, just another steam tank game to give you guys a little bit more eye candy because, you know, steam tanks are certainly a lot of fun. And it's a good discussion worth having, you know, how the High Elves can try and go about countering them. We'll see. The Fireborn, obviously, with their elite charge bonus and anti-large, could potentially be a threat. That being said, on an open map like this, they are going to face just getting shelled by the tank, which will be pretty painful. You can see there's some Reavers scattered around as well. And, yeah. Whoops. There we go. Sorry about that, just clicked off the screen for a minute there, but yeah, you can see the Reavers come in. They're going to try and interrupt the steam tank from firing. My opponent is going to start pushing forward here, realizing that he's pretty well outranged. And I kind of see what he was going for here with this build. Spoiler alert, Lothern Seaguard, while they do have really high melee defense, especially with martial prowess active, their 28 melee attack and their low weapon strength means that their melee DPS output is really low, and state troops, for example, swordsmen with their 32, 32, 28 weapon strength, just great all-around stats, will match up super cost-effectively against Lothern Seaguard in melee. So taking a build like this where you're relying on Lothern Seaguard kind of for your front line, both as a ranged melee hybrid, works pretty well in campaign. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work super well in multiplayer. The other thing about the Dragon Princes that I mentioned, as I said before, without any kind of cover or anything, they are going to face some pretty bad shelling. You can see my opponent is just trying to hide them behind the hill. Thankfully for me, though, the steam tank does have enough of an arc of fire to still be able to pick off a couple models here and there. But, yeah, you can see the Lothern Seaguard come forward, and immediately I'm just going to rush in with the state troops. I mean, obviously, they're spearmen, so charging them with Empire Knights isn't necessarily super ideal, but as long as they're not braced, they won't really get their bracing bonus. Very well-placed Sunfang here, though, is going to wreck this unit of swordsmen, do a ton of damage, and keep them from supporting these knights. That being said, it's already not looking great for this High Elf army. A lot of damage being done to the Reavers. These high-value Fireborn are going to get stuck up on a bunch of cheap Spearmen and Empire Knights, allowing the steam tank to then fire in. The healer got caught out without any protection. Tyrion was not nearby to try and save her. So she got routed off by Carl, and now he's sweeping up and around to try and get on the Fireborn also. Tyrion is doing a lot of damage to these Empire Knights. You can see this unit not faring super great. Those Lothern Seaguard are holding out pretty decently against the swordsmen as well with the support of Tyrion. But, yeah, I mean, Reaver's getting collapsed here. You can see just all across the field. The Lothern Seaguard are holding up okay, but just, again, they're taking really cost-inefficient damage, shock damage from these Empire Knight charges, and damage from the state troops as well. Not to mention the leadership situation. Tyrion against France, both without their buffs active. Tyrion will probably win this. With both their buffs active, it's really hard to say. They are very evenly matched. Tyrion definitely has the advantage in combat stats, whereas Carl has absolutely the advantage in weapon strength and charge. Well, I guess they have the same charge bonus, but the key is that because Carl's up in the air, he can charge Tyrion, and Tyrion, you know, unless Carl misses the charge or is already on the ground, Tyrion's not going to be able to charge him. So France can kind of dictate that engagement. So yeah, Tyrion's okay in this matchup. I actually think that Teclis is probably the best in this matchup, going with Teclis and some nobles. We'll kind of talk about that in just a minute, but yeah, you can see the Lothern Seaguard just getting overwhelmed by numbers here. Again, they will hold out reasonably well. They did get some good kills. I say that. It really wasn't much at the end of the day. But, yeah, they definitely needed some more traditional infantry. You can see Franz comes down, gets a couple really good hits on Tyrion. He quickly gets terrified. And I'm going to put a regrowth on Franz. Likewise, the Elf Caster, which came back from routing, is going to put a regrowth on Tyrion. That will be able to replenish him a bit. He probably will come back, but you can see the Fireborn just got shattered by the steam tank there. It's been able to use up all of its ammunition, pick up 1 XP chevron, getting close to a second one. You can see these swordsmen who had come back from rout going to hold up these... oh, man. Have I ever mentioned how much I love gunpowder units? They're going to hold up these Reavers along with the Jade Wizard here and allow the tank to fire in point blank with both the steam gun and the main gun there. And the effect will be quite brutal, as you can imagine. Pistoliers and Empire Knights just kind of cleaning up tattered High Elf units. We do have another unit of Dragon Princes over here that I had failed to mention earlier. They're going to charge some of these Pistoliers, but you can see how I'm just kind of surrounding with Pistoliers. We've got Empire Knights, all these units supporting. Obviously, Dragon Princes are a lot more elite, but they are few in number, especially against this overwhelming number of filthy humans. So yeah, High Elves facing a typical High Elf problem of just not having enough units on the field. And in a lot of the games recently where you guys have seen me play, you know, Dwarfs, Empire, Greenskins, all against the High Elves, you have seen me take super wide builds, and just in general, that's the best way to fight the High Elves. They're not great against super wide armies, so would definitely recommend at least, you know, 16 to 20 units. Preferably, but yeah, a couple of quick steam tank battles. I know they weren't the most competitive battles in the world, but like I said, it gives us a good chance to talk kind of a bit more about melee attack and defense and why they matter. Sort of talk about the game mechanics a little bit. For those of you, again, who haven't watched my How to Read Stats video, I am still planning on blowing that up into a full series. Not sure exactly when I'm going to have time to do that, but probably we're looking at like July. I might be putting that series out. We'll see, but it's not going to be anytime soon. But in the meantime, we can at least have some discussions about how the game works, like in these last two battles. But yeah, definitely some fun with the steam tank as well. Always a good time using that. For this build here, I definitely, you know, I kind of see what he was going for there. But again, the Lothern Seaguard just really won't hold up well in the front line. So honestly, what you could do, this is what I will often do, is take like 3 archers and then 2 Lothern Seaguard, 3 or 4 archers, and then the Lothern Seaguard will be on the flanks. So in deployment, you know, they would look something like that. So you'd have 1 Lothern Seaguard on one flank, 1 on the other flank, and then the archers in the center. Let's see, definitely bring Tyrion. We'll grab his items as well. And I might cut Foe Seeker just to make it a tiny bit cheaper, but definitely a Life Mage. I'm going to put her on a horse as well, just so that she can try and get out of danger if she needs to. Just a little bit more flexibility there. And then the Fireborn, it's tough, you know, it's really tough to say. This is definitely a tough matchup for the High Elves, but I might say take a Noble on horseback for anti-large work to kind of help support Tyrion, and then we're going to get some Spearmen. Spearmen are reasonably cost-effective against the Empire. They can kind of hold the front line decently well. Do still have quite a bit left that we could take. Reaver Archers might not be a bad idea. The Fireborn are just so expensive here, and they get hard countered by so many different Empire units. I might instead... We could grab some Sisters of Avalorn. That makes me a little bit worried that we're too heavy on ranged, so I might cut a couple of these archers and then bring like some Reavers to protect the back line against Cav. This is kind of a weird build. I don't know. I'd have to kind of sit down and relearn this matchup a little bit from the High Elves perspective. But something like this I would think could be pretty good. You have the Sisters of Avalorn to try and focus Knights and or steam tanks, other high value targets. Maybe you want to try and bring a bolt thrower as well. You know, if you could trade around some costs a little bit here, maybe try and, like, if you did take the mage on foot, then you can maybe optimize a couple other things here. Maybe you cut Foe Seeker. that would give you enough to maybe cut one of these spearmen, take a bolt thrower, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here a little bit. You could definitely do some different things. But, like I said, tough matchup. I do think you need to bring a little bit more of a traditional front line, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.